After my twin brother eloped for love, my mother arranged for me to take his place and become the contract fiancé of the business powerhouse Elisa Brown. After a year of engagement, the story between her and her first love boyfriend became the hottest topic in the entire social circle. Everyone was waiting to see a joke made of me, the legitimate fiancé, while I simply went on quietly handling the merger and acquisition deals on my desk, because on the very night of our engagement, she had already laid everything out plainly. I know you're not Claude. Give me 1 year. I'll get my family to accept Gregory. After 1 year, the engagement will be annulled. You can name any terms you want. I nodded without hesitation. During that 1-year agreement, we were each other's most tacit partners, but when the contract expired, I signed my name without fuss, only for her to want to breach the agreement. Chapter 1. Gregory appeared just as Madame Brown's birthday banquet was reaching its climax. This was my first time meeting him in a public setting. Countless gazes, mixed with scrutiny and mockery, were cast in my direction. I calmly took a sip of red wine, as if the person walking over was not my fiancé's first love, but an insignificant stranger. Grandma Brown, today is your birthday. Gregory went to great lengths to find this famous calligraphy and painting for you. Wishing you longevity and good fortune. Gregory presented a rolled painting to the elderly matriarch of the Brown family, his manner humble and respectful. His taste was indeed excellent. The artwork had sharp strength and a profound artistic conception. Yet Madame Brown did not even lift her eyelids. She continued chatting and laughing with old friends beside her, leaving him standing there awkwardly. The atmosphere instantly grew tense. Elisa frowned and was just about to step forward when I gently pressed my hand against hers, meeting her gaze, tinged with restrained anger. I said in a very low voice, "If you go over now, it'll only make Grandma more displeased." After that, I stood up, walked over to Gregory, and smiled as I examined the painting. Gregory has a keen eye. This is truly rare. I signaled my assistant to put the birthday gift away properly and arranged a suitable seat for him. After sitting down, a trace of complexity surfaced in Elisa's eyes. "Thank you for earlier." I glanced at her and did not respond. Elisa didn't seem to mind. Her gaze followed Gregory almost the entire time. When I was chatting with others for a short while, the two of them had already disappeared. When guests asked about her, I smoothly offered an excuse about business negotiations. It wasn't until I stepped outside the banquet hall for some air that I suddenly saw Gregory, pale-faced, running away, with a flustered Elisa chasing after him. "Gregory, that's not what I meant. Calm down and listen to me." Gregory had his head lowered and didn't notice me standing ahead at all. He stumbled, and instinctively grabbed my arm. The force sent my entire body off balance, and I fell straight into the fountain beside us. "Gregory!" Elisa cried out and rushed over without a second thought. As she passed by me, she didn't even spare me a glance, immediately supporting the unsteady Gregory. By the time I crawled out of the pool in a sorry state, the two of them were already gone. What greeted me were the spectators' eager for drama stares and the murmurs of gossip. I've long heard that Miss Brown can't let go of her first love and ignores the second son of the law family. Today, we've really seen it for ourselves. If Gregory's family hadn't gone bankrupt 5 years ago, he'd have secured the position beside Mr. Brown long ago. How would it ever have been Claude Law's turn? Seeing that I still looked perfectly calm, some people seemed more indignant than I was. To endure humiliation like this, if I were him, I'd have broken off the engagement long ago. Why cling on so stubbornly? I found it somewhat amusing. I wasn't Claude to begin with. Who she cared about had nothing to do with me. Instead, Madame Brown felt that I had suffered a great injustice. To appease me, she announced on the spot that a highly promising new energy project would be handed over to me in full charge. After my assistant finished organizing the project materials, he looked at me worriedly. "President Law, Miss Brown treats you like this, yet you still accepted such an important project." I patted his shoulder, because this is what I deserve. Judging by the time, there was less than a month left until the 1-year agreement. Soon, all of this would come to an end. Chapter 2. Seeing Elisa Brown in my office late at night genuinely surprised me. At this hour, instead of staying with the men she loved, what was she doing here with me? Only after asking did I learn that Madame Brown had ordered her to come. She was told to assist me, this wronged fiancé, in handling the project. Even though I didn't need her help at all, under the pressure from the matriarch, Elisa had no choice but to work overtime with me for 3 straight days. Later, out of sheer boredom, I pulled her into doing a market risk simulation. I dismantled her argument so thoroughly that she was left completely speechless. It was as if she had discovered a whole new world. She clung to me and insisted on running simulated trading sessions for 2 days and 2 nights straight. When she finally left, her face was full of lingering excitement. The next morning, she woke me up early for another round of business strategy games. Unsurprisingly, she lost again. By the weekend's industry summit, Madame Brown forcibly made us attend together. While she was still arguing heatedly with me over last quarter's financial data, her voice suddenly stopped. I followed her line of sight and saw Gregory standing not far away. chatting animatedly with a woman. Elisa's expression darkened instantly. As the two of them headed toward the other side of the venue, I nudged her lightly, not going over to say hello. Elisa's face was icy. No need. After that, she fell silent the entire time. She seemed distracted, clearly lost in her thoughts. Later, she claimed she was going to the restroom, but instead followed in the direction those two had gone. I stayed where I was. Even after the summit ended, Elisa never came back. I tugged at the corner of my mouth soundlessly. When I returned to the company and Madame Brown asked about it, I made up an excuse on Elisa's behalf to brush it off. Elisa disappeared for a full 2 days. When she finally returned, she reeked of alcohol. I wasn't prepared and nearly got knocked to the ground by her. After some effort, I settled her onto the sofa in the lounge. Her eyes were unfocused as she stared at the ceiling, her voice carrying a trace of defeat. Gregory is going to accept her investment. I froze for a moment, but didn't take it too seriously. Maybe he just wants to prove himself in his career. Every time she had a falling out with Gregory, she would come to me to vent. A few days later, the two of them would make up again as if nothing had happened. I was already used to it. Elisa lifted her arm to cover her reddened eyes, a bitter smile on her lips. This time is different. How could it be any different? That was what I thought, but I didn't say it out loud. I knew a bit about what had happened between her and Gregory. After Gregory's family went bankrupt, Elisa had used a great deal of her resources to help him, sparing him from harassment by creditors. But the Brown family could not accept a son-in-law whose family had fallen from grace. They remained at a stalemate for 3 years. In the end, Elisa still agreed to the marriage alliance with me. No, with my brother, Claude. Elisa spoke in fragments for a long time, until I finished dealing with my emails and, without realizing it, fell asleep with my head on the desk. When I woke up, Elisa was gone. I rolled my stiff neck and noticed an extra woman's trench coat draped over me, carrying a faint, pleasant scent. Just then, Elisa pushed the door open and saw the coat. She cleared her throat awkwardly about what happened at the birthday banquet. "I'm sorry. Would you like some coffee?" She placed a cup of still steaming coffee on my desk. Even though I wasn't very alert, I still picked it up. "Thank you." I thought this time would be the same as before, that Elisa and Gregory would soon reconcile. But Elisa stayed at the company for days on end, and Gregory moved out of the apartment Elisa had arranged for him. Whenever she had free time, Elisa would pull me into discussions about project details, accompany me to meetings, and work overtime with me. For a while, I couldn't find a suitable opportunity to bring up terminating the engagement. Seeing her change, the happiest person of all was Madame Brown. She kept saying it was the ancestors' blessing and insisted on taking me to a suburban horse ranch to relax. As we were heading out, we happened to run into Elisa, and Madame Brown immediately dragged her into the car as well. Chapter 3. Unfortunately, Gregory was there as well. Standing beside him was still that business elite woman, Fu Han. Suddenly, my wrist was grabbed. I looked at Elisa in confusion, momentarily unsettled by the closeness of her presence as she leaned in. She reached out to brush a few blades of grass off my shoulder, her smile carrying an intentional softness that made me feel uncomfortable. It wasn't until I saw Gregory turn away with a darkened expression that I instantly understood. Seeing that she still hadn't let go, I had no choice but to remind her, "He can't see us anymore." Elisa froze for a moment, then abruptly withdrew her hand. I was distracted just now. Don't misunderstand. As she spoke, the tips of her ears reddened slightly, and she quickly walked into the lounge of the riding grounds. I waited outside for a while. When she still didn't come out, I led a horse by myself and walked slowly across the grass. Suddenly, a gunshot shattered the calm of the ranch. Before I could react, I felt the muzzle of a gun press against the back of my head. My heartbeat spiked violently, my body instinctively tensing. A few steps away from me was Gregory, who had also been taken hostage. "Don't anyone move, or both of them are dead." Elisa rushed out after hearing the gunshot. What she saw was a scene so shocking it nearly split her gaze apart. The attackers were members of the Wang family, who had gone bankrupt after losing out to the Brown family in business competition. Elisa clenched her teeth, staring at them with an expression so vicious it was as if she wanted to devour them alive. "Let them go, or I guarantee you'll wish you were dead. Name your demands, whatever you want, but if either of them gets hurt even a little, I swear you won't make it out of here." The other side hesitated. Taking advantage of the moment, Elisa's assistant began negotiating with them. In the end, they agreed to release one person first. Elisa was to prepare 200 million, and only then would they release the other. Everyone's gaze fell on Elisa, waiting for her decision. "Release him first." Elisa raised her hand, pointing toward Gregory with great difficulty. In an instant, all eyes turned to me with sympathy. I merely looked at Elisa calmly, not surprised by her choice at all. I had been abandoned. They released Gregory, who turned deathly pale and hid behind Elisa. The attacker tightened his grip around me, the cold gun barrel knocking painfully against my head. Someone must have called the police. Loud sirens echoed from afar. The attackers panicked and fired another shot into the air. Elisa ordered the bodyguards to surround them tightly, while she shielded Gregory behind her, terrified that he might be startled even slightly. I let out a cold laugh. Taking advantage of the kidnapper's momentary distraction, I used the combat techniques my mother had taught me and subdued him in a single move, slamming him to the ground. I had only pretended to comply earlier to lower their guard. By the time the police arrived, I had already knocked all of them to the ground. After handing them over to the authorities, I turned and saw Elisa. She stood there in a daze, her eyes filled with disbelief as she looked at me, as if only now did she remember that I wasn't the Claude who needed her protection. I was Jason. Jason, raised from childhood by my mother under the strict standards of a successor. Coming back to her senses, she suddenly rushed over and hugged me tightly, lifting her head with worry. Are you hurt? Her body trembled slightly from lingering fear. I pushed her away. Let go. Chapter 4. Elisa held me tightly, as if the person who had just abandoned me hadn't been her at all. On the way back, she kept explaining over and over again. I didn't really mean to give up on you just now. I know, I replied without much emotion, because we were never in a relationship that required explanations in the first place. Elisa thought I was angry. She suddenly grabbed my hand and pressed it against her pulse. Jason, if you're angry, you can do anything to me. I'm begging you, don't treat me with this kind of attitude. I looked at her in confusion, not knowing where these words were coming from. I'm really not angry with you, because from the very beginning, I had never expected her to choose me. Elisa opened her mouth, but everything she wanted to say was blocked by my calm response. The more composed and unruffled I appeared, the more uneasy and panicked Elisa became. Before long, what happened that day spread throughout the company. The way employees looked at me changed, and some even openly gossiped about me in the break room. My assistant was furious and wanted to argue with them. I stopped him. Forget it. There's no need to waste time. Besides, what they said was the truth. But the next day, every employee who had been gossiping was transferred away from core positions. Only then did I find out that those remarks had somehow reached Elisa. That very day, she ordered the administration department to issue the transfers. After that, she tried every possible way to appear in my office every single day. Rare coffee beans, business intelligence reports, things kept being sent my way nonstop. My assistant was delighted. I only found it troublesome. Today was the very last day of our one-year agreement. Just as I was about to go look for Elisa, Madame Brown sent someone to summon me. When I arrived, I realized that both Elisa and Gregory were there. During this period, Gregory had been visiting the old residence frequently, chatting with Madame Brown, bringing her antiques and collectibles she liked. Madame Brown's attitude toward him was no longer as cold and rigid as before. Her heart was never made of iron, and knowing how deeply her granddaughter loved him, her stance finally began to soften. Calling me over today was her way of making her position clear. Gregory looked at Elisa with a trace of affection, but found her gaze firmly locked on me instead. Jason. She attentively pulled out a chair for me and poured me a glass of warm water. Gregory's smile instantly froze. I didn't take a single sip of that water. Afterward, I used work as an excuse to leave. Elisa wanted to follow me, but Gregory stopped her. No one knew what the two of them talked about. Not long after, word spread that Gregory had left the Brown family's old residence with an ugly expression. That night, I asked Elisa to come to my office. She had deliberately changed into a dress, carrying a faint woody scent. When she looked at me, she called my name with unmistakable tenderness. Jason. I simply looked at her calmly. Elisa. Let's end the engagement. Chapter 5. End the engagement. Elisa froze in place, staring at me in disbelief. All the color drained from her striking face, leaving only shock behind. Jason. Don't do this. Her voice was hoarse, laced with a trace of panic she couldn't quite hide. I know you're still angry about what happened at the ranch, but there's no need for us to go this far. Instinctively, she assumed this was nothing more than a tactic, my way of retreating in order to advance. There wasn't the slightest ripple in my gaze as I turned toward my desk and pulled open a drawer. I placed a document gently in front of her. Black text on white paper, the title painfully glaring. Termination of engagement agreement. 2 copies. My signature had already been signed. Our contract was for 1 year. Today is the last day. Miss Brown, this is simply the end of a transaction, nothing more. Elisa's breathing stalled abruptly. She stared at the agreement as if it were some kind of monstrous beast. She panicked completely. For the first time, that composed confidence, her sense of control over everything, vanished from her face. No, Jason. It wasn't a transaction. She reached out to grab my hand, but I avoided her easily. Listen to me. That day at the ranch, I'll compensate you, whatever compensation you want. She sounded like someone drowning, desperately clutching at the last straw. I can give you more shares in the company. I can give you. Her words grew clumsy and frantic. I love you, Jason, I really have fallen in love with you. That confession sounded nothing but ridiculous to me. The new energy project was the compensation I deserved. And now, I've already received it. Between us, we're even. As for your love, Miss Brown, I curled my lips slightly, my smile filled with mockery. It's too cheap. I don't need it. Just then, the office door was pushed open. Gregory rushed in, his face full of concern. Elisa, I heard you and Mr. Jason had an argument. When he saw how pale she was, he instinctively stepped forward to comfort her. Get out. Elisa, overwhelmed and on edge, shoved him away hard. Gregory staggered back several steps, his face filled with disbelief. In Elisa's eyes at that moment, there was only my resolute retreating figure. I didn't hesitate for even a second. Without looking back, I pulled open the door and walked out. The door closed behind me, cutting off her view completely. Elisa collapsed onto the sofa in despair. For the first time, she felt it clearly. Her world was collapsing, irreversibly. Chapter 6. Elisa mobilized her influence almost immediately. She tried to suppress the news of the engagement's termination at all costs. But my legal team moved faster, and far more professionally. Early the next morning, every major financial outlet was dominated by a single announcement. A joint statement from the Brown Group and the Law Group declared that Ms. Elisa Brown and Mr. Claude Law had mutually agreed to terminate their engagement due to personal reasons. The wording was impeccable, airtight, painting everything as a clean and amicable separation. The entire business world was in an uproar. Everyone had assumed I would be the one who refused to let go. After all, no one willingly releases a hold on a family as powerful as the Browns. Yet my clean, decisive exit earned me universal respect instead. When Elisa saw the news, she nearly crushed her phone in her hand. She went frantic trying to find me. She went to the Law family home, to the galleries I frequented, to the restaurants we had once visited together, only to discover that my regular apartment had already been vacated. My private number had become a cold, non-existent line. It was as if I had vanished from the world entirely, completely erased from her life. The only place she could still see me was the weekly New Energy Project meetings. In the conference room, I wore a sharp, tailored suit, my focus unwavering. Every attempt she made to get close to me, I ignored. The coffee she handed over, I treated it as if it didn't exist. The personal conversations she tried to start during breaks, I cut them off again and again. For the first time in her life, Elisa felt powerless and defeated in front of me. She had gone from a lofty, dominant partner, to a humble bystander desperately trying to catch my attention. Just when everyone thought this was merely another emotional tug-of-war between elite families, my twin brother Claude, who had once eloped for so-called true love, suddenly returned to the country in high profile. Life with that true love hadn't been happy. He quickly lost his source of income. The two of them endured endless humiliation overseas. From the news, he saw how Elisa now couldn't let go of me. A surge of fierce jealousy swallowed him whole. He joined forces with Gregory, who hated me just as deeply, determined to reclaim the position of Mr. Brown that he believed should have been his. That afternoon, Claude and Gregory blocked my path downstairs at the Brown Group headquarters. The moment Claude saw me, his eyes instantly reddened. Little brother, I know you like Elisa, but you can't do this to me. Gregory chimed in from the side, slandering me for using underhanded tactics and conspiracies to steal my brother's happiness. The surrounding gazes gathered instantly, filled with scrutiny and disdain. I merely watched their clumsy performance, a cold smile curling at the corner of my lips. Brother, let me remind you of something. I still have the recording of you asking me to take your place in the engagement after you eloped with that woman. Would you like everyone to hear it? Claude's sobbing stopped abruptly. His face turned deathly pale in an instant. Chapter 7. With no way out left, Elisa actually paid a personal visit to Claude's mother. She lowered her posture as much as possible, hoping to find a breakthrough through an elder and persuade me to change my mind. Claude's mother simply brewed her a cup of tea, calm and unhurried. Elisa, do you know this? She said. Between my two sons, the one I've always admired most is my younger son. Steam curled gently from the teacup, her gaze sharp yet clear. He has his own judgment, his own ability, and he has never disappointed me. So whatever decision he makes, I will support it unconditionally. Elisa's last shred of hope was completely shattered by the woman's gentle yet resolute words. When the first plan failed, Gregory and Claude moved on to their second. They hired online troll armies and began spreading carefully fabricated rumors across major social platforms. Overnight, I became a scheming, calculating man, someone who would stop at nothing to climb into a powerful family, even framing his own brother and stealing his sister-in-law. The stories were vivid and detailed, instantly igniting a storm of public opinion. I ignored the rumors that were raging everywhere. All my energy went into my work. A few days later, at the highly anticipated project launch event, I personally took the stage and announced that the New Energy Project had achieved a major technological breakthrough. With core energy conversion efficiency far exceeding industry standards, the news directly drove the Brown Group's stock to hit the daily upper limit for 3 consecutive days. My name became firmly bound to the words business prodigy, my reputation completely established. Madam Brown watched the entire launch event on television and praised my composure and capability without restraint. At the same time, she also saw the disgraceful rumors spreading online. The old lady was thunderously enraged. She could not tolerate anyone using such despicable methods to smear someone she had set her sights on. She personally accepted a financial media interview, publicly refuted the rumors, and issued an unambiguous warning to Elisa. Our Brown family will never accept a man as morally corrupt as Gregory marrying into our family. Elisa's heart sank to the bottom. Her grandmother's words, combined with Gregory and Claude's recent madness, finally allowed her to see Gregory's true nature. She went to find Gregory and Claude, who were in the middle of celebrating. Stop your foolish actions immediately. Her voice was cold as ice. Otherwise, I will personally make you pay the price. This was the first time she showed undisguised disgust and contempt toward Gregory. Seeing the icy look in her eyes, Gregory realized that he had completely lost her. Any hope of entering the Brown family shattered at that moment. Despair and madness began to intertwine in his gaze. He decided to make one last gamble. Using the last trace of guilt Elisa still felt toward him, he secretly gained access to the project team's internal servers. He stole what he believed to be the lifeline of the project, the so-called core data. Then, he sold it at a high price to the Brown family's longtime sworn enemy, the Arion Group. He intended to use this method to completely destroy me, and destroy the achievement I was most proud of. When the Arion Group obtained the data, they were overjoyed. They immediately poured massive funds into development based on the data model. They believed they had stumbled upon a once-in-a-lifetime bargain and could use it to crush the Brown Group in one decisive move. Instead, they not only failed to replicate success, but fell straight into a massive commercial trap. Those data had been tampered with from the very beginning, guiding them toward a fundamentally wrong technological path. Enormous amounts of capital went down the drain, and the Arion Group found itself on the brink of bankruptcy overnight. At the next Project Progress meeting, I revealed the truth in front of everyone. Mr. Gregory's recent moves have been a bit too aggressive. I calmly opened a set of surveillance footage and server logs. I noticed long ago that someone was coveting something that didn't belong to him. So I prepared a little gift especially for him. The so-called core data was, from the very start, bait I prepared just for him. Chapter 8. The entire room erupted in shock. Elisa's face turned ghastly pale. The deceived Arion Group flew into a rage. In a bid to recover their losses, they chose to go straight to the police. They publicly released all evidence of their transaction with Gregory, formally accusing him of corporate espionage. Gregory's actions as a commercial spy were fully exposed. Not only was his reputation utterly destroyed, he now faced enormous compensation claims from the Arion Group, along with impending criminal prosecution. The business elite woman who had once invested in him, Fu Han, saw clearly that he had lost all value and was entangled in a massive legal disaster. She immediately cut all ties with him and withdrew every cent she had promised. Gregory's world collapsed completely within just a few days. He was abandoned by everyone, falling from a once-admired, white moonlight figure into a despised criminal everyone wanted to trample. Waiting for him were cold prison bars and a bleak remainder of his life. With Gregory's total downfall, my brother Claude panicked. He had lost his strongest ally, and had also seen my methods firsthand. He came to me in tears, sobbing about how his elopement for love had been forced by circumstances, how he had been blinded by emotions. He begged me to forgive him for the sake of brotherhood. I looked at his tearful performance, my heart utterly unmoved. Forgive you? I looked at him calmly. Claude Law, because of your reckless selfishness back then, both the Law family and the Brown family were disgraced. Mother has already transferred 70% of the group's shares under her name to me. My voice was soft, but every word struck Claude like a hammer. I am now the sole heir of the Law Group. Claude Law completely collapsed. He slumped to the ground, eyes hollow, muttering to himself. He never imagined that he hadn't just lost Elisa. He had also lost the vast Law family fortune he had always considered his last retreat. For an illusory love, he had lost everything. Elisa witnessed all of this from a short distance away. She looked at the broken Claude, then at my cold indifference. Only then did she belatedly realize how blind and foolish she had been, and how much damage she had caused to me and to the Law family. She walked up to me, her voice hoarse. I'm sorry. She apologized again, her eyes filled with pain and regret. I hope you can forgive me. I lifted my gaze and looked at her quietly. The face that had once stirred my heart now failed to provoke even the slightest ripple. I don't need your apology, I told her clearly, word by word, because to me, from beginning to end, you were nothing more than a business partner. And now, that partnership is over. That was all there ever was between us. To punish Claude thoroughly for his actions, his mother demoted him to a subsidiary in a remote region. She made him start from the lowest position, paying the price he deserved for his choices. Chapter 9. Dead inside. That was the only feeling Elisa had left. My words, business partner, had severed all her remaining hope. She couldn't understand how things had ended up like this. Soon after, she mobilized all her resources to investigate what had happened 5 years ago. She wanted to know exactly when she had first gone wrong and what she had missed. The results were like a bucket of ice water poured over her head. She was shocked to discover that Gregory's family's so-called accidental bankruptcy 5 years ago had nothing to do with mismanagement. And the mastermind behind the targeted takedown sent a chill straight to her bones. It had been me. Back then, I was still a college student. She couldn't believe it, and continued digging deeper along that thread. The truth is often unbearable. Many years ago, I had a mentor I deeply respected, a brilliant entrepreneur. His company was driven into bankruptcy by Gregory's family through unfair competition and malicious framing. That optimistic, resilient mentor of mine ultimately couldn't bear the weight. He jumped from a high building, ending his own life. From that day on, the seed of revenge took root in my heart. I lay low for years, planning step by step. Everything was for avenging my mentor, to make Gregory's family pay for what they had done. Marrying into the Brown family and becoming Elisa's fiancé was merely the final step of my revenge plan. I needed the Browns' top-tier platform and immense resources to deliver the final blow to Gregory's family. I needed to lift Gregory to the highest point, and then let him fall the hardest. I wanted his father to watch, in utter despair, as the son he cherished most followed the same path as my mentor, never to rise again. Holding that thick stack of investigation materials, Elisa's hands trembled uncontrollably. She found me and waited downstairs at my office building for an entire night. There was no anger left in her eyes, only overwhelming shock and defeat. At last, she understood. From beginning to end, she had been nothing more than a chess piece in my plan. The most useful chess piece, meant solely to achieve the final goal. Looking at her reddened eyes, I calmly admitted everything. Yes, I did all of it. I looked at her, my gaze steady and sharp, and said each word clearly. At the ranch, you chose to protect Gregory, and I, from the very beginning, chose to destroy him. Elisa, that is the fundamental difference between us. Chapter 10. The truth was finally laid bare for all to see. Elisa at last understood that I was not a gilded canary she could keep in a cage, but an eagle soaring high above the heavens. She no longer dared to hope for reconciliation. To me, that would have been an insult. All she wanted now was to make what little amends she could for her past foolishness. She mobilized all the resources of the Brown family, uprooting what remained of Gregory's family's shady, illicit businesses and handing them over to the authorities in their entirety. She also established a foundation in the name of the Brown family. It restored the reputation of my mentor, who had died unjustly, and funded entrepreneurs who had been persecuted by vicious commercial competition. I placed a bouquet of white chrysanthemums before my mentor's gravestone. My phone vibrated. It was a message from Elisa. No extra words, just 2 simple characters. I'm sorry. I stared at that message in silence for a long time. In the end, I replied with just one word. Thank you. Thank you for letting me complete my revenge. And thank you for finally letting me go. After hearing the full truth from Elisa, Madame Brown sat in her study in silence for a long while. Then she said to Elisa, "Our Brown family owes him justice. You are not worthy of him." Those words completely extinguished the last illusory flame in Elisa's heart. She knew she had lost me forever. After finally giving up, she made a decision that shocked the entire business world. She held a press conference and announced that, in her personal capacity, she would transfer 10% of Brown Group's shares to me free of charge. She said this was compensation for her past mistakes, and also a reward for my outstanding contributions to the new energy project. The move stunned everyone. Everyone believed I would accept this sky-high gift. With those shares, I would become a true emperor of the business world. From there, I would ascend straight to the pinnacle of life. Faced with this enormous fortune falling from the sky, I held my own press conference. Under the focus of countless flashing cameras, I publicly refused Elisa's share transfer. The compensation I deserved was the success of the new energy project. That was clearly written in our contract. My voice carried clearly through the microphone, reaching everyone present. We are already even. Immediately after, I announced a second, even more explosive piece of news. Following friendly negotiations with the Brown Group's board of directors, I would lead the entire core team to formally spin off the new energy project from the Brown Group. On that foundation, we would establish a brand new, fully independent company. The company would be called Luminous Technology, and I would personally serve as its chairman. On the day of the announcement, I stood beneath the spotlight in a perfectly tailored black suit, calm, powerful, radiant beyond measure. I relied on no one, with nothing but my own ability and intellect. I had personally built a business empire that belonged to me alone. I stood before the floor-to-ceiling windows on the top floor of Luminous Technologies headquarters. Below me lay the glittering lights of a bustling city. Behind me, there was no one. Yet in my eyes, there was an unprecedented sense of freedom and peace. At the other end of the city, Elisa watched this scene on television. She looked at the men on the screen, so dazzling, so far beyond her reach. A bitter smile appeared on her face, tinged with a sense of release. She lifted her glass and, from afar, offered a silent toast to the screen. My story later became a legend in the business world, and I told everyone this. A person's true value has never been about attaching themselves to someone else. It is about becoming someone.